Hi, welcome to my channel. In today's session we will learn about databases, how to create a database and how to alter and drop a database. In today's session we will discuss on this. Firstly we will discuss about how to create a database. There is two ways to create a database. Initially, one is graphically we can create the database, and second one is through query also we can create a database in SQL Server. This is the syntax to create a database. Create is a keyword and database also system defined keyword, and you have to provide database name here. This is the example. Create database and database name. We will see this thing in practically. This is my database server. In this example I am using SQL Server 2012. You have to provide the server name here. So if you have any SQL Server, then you have to provide the server authentication. At present I am pausing Windows authentication here. So all fields are mandatory, and click on connect so that it will connect to your database management studio, and all the objects will be displayed in your object explorer. Suppose if you are not able to find out your object explorer, then you can go to view. Suppose I opened my SQL Server management studio, I am not able to see the object explorer. That time you can go to view, select object explorer, so that you will be able to access all the databases. So here I have lot of databases. If you expand the databases, you can see all the databases here. I have created different types of databases for my purpose, so you can see the all the databases here. If you expand here, you can see the tables. So like this. Now we will create one database here. If you want to create a new database, there is two ways. Initially you can create through graphically, second one is through query. First, initially we will see how to create a database graphically. Right click on databases, click on new database, then it will ask for database name. This is a mandatory field, you have to provide your database name. So I am giving as demo, and this is the name, system defined name. If you want to change, you can change the name also here. And here main important thing is path. By default this database will be stored in C program files where your SQL Server has been installed. In that folder only it will save. So this is the folder where it is by default saved. So for me I want to change the path. Just click on here. So it will ask you the path. So I am selecting in C drive. This is my drives, C drive, demo databases. Select the folder where you want to store your database and click on OK. And for log also same path I will select. So C drive, demo databases, click on OK. Now see the path. So its path is C demo databases. All your database content will be saved in the C drive and demo databases. Click on OK. It's executing now. So your database has been created. If you want to see the database, refresh on databases, you can see the database. So at present it's empty database. There is no content inside this. Now we will see how to create a database through query. To create a database, click on new query. So already we know what is the query to create a database. Create is a keyword, database is system defined keyword, and what name you have to provide for database name. So I am creating as demo1. Already I have demo, so I am creating as demo1. So these two are database, sorry, SQL keywords. Create is keyword and database is keyword. If you want to create table, then you have to provide here as table. So at present I want to create as database, so I provided as database. So this is my database name. If you want to execute this, you can click on execute, or you can press F5 also. F5 is the shortcut key. So I'm clicking execute. This query is executing. So command completed successfully. That means your query has been executed. Again, right click on databases, refresh, demo1. Now we have created the demo1 database. It has been created. So this is these two process we can create the database. One is graphically you can create the database, and second one is through query. So anyone you can use it. It's not a problem. Then we will discuss on alter database. How to rename or alter a database. Suppose I created one name with the demo. Database name is demo. I want to change it as some other name. So how to do it? This is the syntax for renaming a database, altering a database. So alter database. Alter is a keyword and database is a keyword. And database name. What is your existing database name? And modify name. So modify name, you have to provide the new name here. This is also keywords. So we will see one example here. Alter database. This is the database name, existing database name. I am renaming it as, this is my new database name. So this is the keyword alter database, existing database, and modify name to new database name. So we will see the example. For altering database also we have two procedures you can do it. One is graphically you can rename the database, and second one is through query also you can rename the database. First we will see how to rename a database through graphically. Suppose I have the database called demo1, so I want to rename it as demo2. So what we have to do is right click on your database, click on rename. Now I want to make it as demo2. Just enter. So now this database name has been changed to demo2. And through query we will see how to rename a database. For that, alter database. So existing name is demo. Modify as so I want to make it as demo3. So alter database, what is your existing database name, and modify as demo3. So I am changing demo database name as demo3. Now click on execute. The database name demo3 has been set. So these two process we can do it. So first initially we can alter the database with graphically, and second one is through query also we can rename the database. Then finally we will see how to drop a database. So this is the syntax to drop a database. Drop database and database name. Drop is the keyword and database is the keyword. Here you have to provide your database name which you want to drop. That means delete. Drop is called in SQL Server. We will call delete as drop. So this is the example, drop database, and I am passing as database name. Two ways you can do the deletion also. Initially we will delete the database graphically, and second one we can delete the database through query. Suppose initially I am deleting this one graphically. Right click on your database, click on delete. It will ask confirmation. Suppose if you want to keep existing information backups for restoration purpose, you can skip this one. And suppose someone access this database, someone already opened this database, so SQL Server Management Studio, it will not allow you to delete because someone is working already on this database. So if you want to close that existing connections, select the close existing connection, then click on OK. So if you see, database has been deleted. So drop option we will see with query also. Suppose I want to drop a database, so my database name is demo3. I want to drop this database. So drop is the keyword, database is the keyword, and This is the database I'm going to delete, that means drop. So click on execute. Executed successfully. Whenever you are executing a command, so you have to refresh on this one, then only you can see the result. See, demo 3 has been dropped. So now we have to see the main thing. Initially we created one database where all these database files has been saved. So we gave us in the folders, whenever you are creating a database, two files will be created. One is demo, one is demo underscore log. So what is the file extension for demo? This is the MDF. This is the main database which contains all your tables, queries, and your stored procedures, everything. Entire data will be stored in the MDF file, .mdf. So this is the log file. This extension will be .ldf. This is the LDF file where this contains server database transaction logs. All the transactions will be stored in. Whenever you are going to restore your database, that time you can use this log file. This will be useful for restoration purpose. In today's session, we will discuss how to create, alter, and drop a table. This create table. So it will be used to create a new table in a database. This is the syntax to create a table. Create table, table name, and you have to provide the column name of each column and what is the data type of that column. So like this we have to create, and this will be the example. Create table, employee master, and I am creating one employee master with the columns of employee ID and employee name. So we will see how to create a table in SQL Server. This is my SQL Server Management Studio. So I have a lot of databases inside this. So I am using one database called demo. Expand this one. And as we discussed yesterday's session, while creating database, we can create through graphical and through query. So likewise, while creating table also, we can create table graphically and second one through query. First we'll see how to create a table graphically. Right click on tables, click on new table. Column name, I want employee ID. Always employee ID will be integer. And I don't want to allow nulls. Suppose if you click on allow nulls, so even if you are not entering any data in the employee ID, so it will accept. I don't want to allow nulls because employee ID is mandatory. Then second one is I'm creating column name as employee name. I want whacker. So I want length. What is the length of this column? So it will accept maximum of whatever you are giving the value here. I want to accept up to 150 characters. Allow nulls. Whether you want to allow nulls or not. So I don't want to allow any null values here. Then designation. So this is also I am creating as so I am creating designation with the 50 characters. So in this column I am allowing nulls also. So then I want email. So this is also whacker 50 characters I am accepting. This is also null. So then right click here, save table 1. So it will ask to enter a name for the table. So you have to provide name here, whatever the name you want. So I am passing as name, table name as employee master. This will set to your table name. To identify the table, this is the name for your table. So I am saving as employee master for this table. Now you click expand the tables. See, employee master has been created. Likewise, I want to create one more table. Now we will see how to create a table through query. Click on tables, You can click on DB itself, that's enough, and click on new query. Then we will create a table. Suppose I am creating one table. Like, to create a table, create table, you have to pass the table name. I want a table called salary master. I'm creating salary master. So I'm creating as column name as ID. It is an integer. Then whether you want to allow nulls or not. So I don't want to allow nulls, not null. Then I'm passing as employee ID, integer, not null. Then I'm adding as salary, integer, and I'm allowing nulls. So this is my table. So create is a keyword and table also system defined keyword. This is your table name. Our table name is salary master, and this is the column name. ID I am giving as integer, data type is integer, and I don't want to allow any nulls. ID is mandatory. Then second column we are creating as employee ID. This is also integer. I am not going to allow any null values. Then salary. Salary always it will be integer. I am allowing nulls. So suppose if I don't know the salary how much is getting, that time I can skip this column. So that's why I'm passing as null. So whenever you are opening this one, you have to close here. So this is opening braces and closing here. So now click on execute. So your table has been created. To see the table, what we have to do is click on tables, right click, refresh. Salary master table has been created. If you see the structure of this one, it will be similar like how we created graphically. ID, it's not allowing us. See this, not allowing us. Then employee ID, I'm not allowing nulls, not null. Salary, click here. Yes, I'm not allowing. Sorry, salary part I'm allowing null values. So this is the way of creating table through query. So now we had discussed about how to create a table. Now we had seen how to create a table through graphical and query. Now we will see how to alter a table through graphical and query. So alter table is it is used to add, modify or delete columns in existing table. So suppose I created one table. I want to rename it, like I want to modify the table name. So how we will do is, we'll see the syntax. This is the stored procedure. In later sessions we will discuss about the stored procedure. So for now, so just you think that this is the stored procedure to rename a table. So SP rename is system defined stored procedure. There is two types of stored procedures available in SQL Server. One is system defined and second one is user defined. Two types of stored procedures available. So to rename a table, this is the stored procedure name, sp underscore rename. Then we have to pass the table name. Then second one is you have to pass the new name. So this is the example. So if you want to rename means sp underscore rename existing table name, and you have to pass the new table name. We'll see in SQL Server how to alter a table. Now we will see how to rename a table. So expand the tables. Here also we have two ways to rename a table. That means alter a table. First we will see graphically how to alter a table. Then we will discuss how to alter a table through query. Suppose I have one master, salary master is here. I want to rename this table. Just I click on this table, click on rename. Then you enter the new name. Suppose I am changing as, instead of salary master I am changing as salary. Then enter. So now it has been set to salary. So we will see how to alter a table through query. Table is p underscore rename. This is the system defined store procedure. Then you have to pass the existing table name. Salary is my existing table name. Then I want to rename it as salary master. So this is the system defined store procedure. This is my existing table name. This is the existing table. So I am passing the existing table name. I want to rename it as salary master. This is the new table name. Now click on execute. So it already changed. Why it is giving caution is changing any part of an object name could break scripts and store procedure. Suppose this table name you have been already used in your stored procedures or somewhere else in your script. So what it is saying is if you are changing system table name here means then it will create a error in the stored procedures and your scripts. It will break scripts and stored procedures. That's what they are telling. Just now whether it's changed or not. I click on the tables, refresh. See, this has been set. So now we had seen how to rename or alter a table with the design mode as well as through query. So now we will discuss how to drop a table, through design mode as well as through query. Drop is used to drop any existing table in a database. This drop keyword is used to delete. That means drop is equivalent to delete. So we'll see the syntax how to drop a table. Drop table. Drop is a keyword and table also keyword. Whenever you are dropping table, you have to pass the table keyword. If you want to drop a database, you will pass database here, and you have to pass which table you want to drop. So this is the example. I want to drop table, that whatever the table name. So you have to pass the table name here. Drop table, table name. You'll see in example in SQL. Now we will discuss how to drop a table in SQL Server. So here also we have two ways, already you are aware of that one. So initially we will drop a table in design mode, then we'll see in query. So expand the tables. So I have two types of tables here. Suppose I want to drop employee master. So right click on the table, click on delete, click on OK. See, table has been deleted. So same thing we will see in query mode. How to delete a table through query. So drop is the keyword. What do you want to drop? Whether it's database or table. I want to drop a table. So I want to pass the table name. Drop is the keyword and table is the keyword. And salary master. Salary master is this is my salary master table. I want to drop this one. So you can copy paste this one also. So this is my query. Click on execute. Command completed successfully. Now you right click on tables, click on refresh. So your table has been dropped, that means deleted. In today's session we will learn about database backups and how to restore a database backup from backup file. This is very important topic in SQL Server. So whatever the database we have to maintain a database backup. Suppose if something is deleted or something, if you want to retrieve the data from old backups, so then you need backup file. So in today's session we will learn how to take a backup from SQL Server. This is my SQL Server Management Studio. So I am connecting with Windows Authentication. Click on connect. I have different databases. I want to restore any one database. Here also we have two types of where we can design mode also we can take the backup and we can restore, and second one is through query also we can take the backups, database backups, and we can restore. First we'll see in design mode how to take a database backup. Suppose if you want to take a database backup, first right click on the database. Suppose I'm going to take demo DB database backup. Right click on the database, click on tasks, click on backup. So here source it will ask which database you want to take the backup. I want to take demo DB. Copy only backup. So this will take only copy of a backup. So it will not take log files and all. Okay. And backup type is full or differential. Suppose already you are taking daily, you are taking database backup. So whatever the changes happened after previous backup, that only it will take. Suppose I want, most of the times we will take full database backup. So I am selecting as full, and it will ask backup set name. So this will be the name where it will create for your backup set, and you can schedule a backup also. If you set me, suppose I am setting it will expire after some time. So if you want to, I don't want to set any expiry, otherwise it will not happen back. So here I want to save it to disk, where you want to save. By default SQL Server will select this path C program files and where your SQL Server Management Studio here installed. So it will be taken and it will be saved into the database backups. So I don't want to store here. Click on remove, add. Manually I am changing the path, storage path. By default it will be saved in backups. I am storing in DB restore. I am not DB restore, I am storing in DB backups. So here you have to give the file name. I want to give it as demo db.bak. So this file database backup file will be saved as demo db. So click on OK. OK, and your path will be, storage path will be C drive db backups. Your file name will be demo db. Click on OK. It's executing. It's 100%. The backup of database demo db completed successfully. Click on OK. Now we'll go and see. Demo db backup is completed. This is what we create. So like this we can take the database backup. Also we can take backup through query. Take a database backup. This is the syntax. Backup is the keyword, database is the keyword. Here you provide the database name which you want to take the backup. To disk, and storing on disk. You have to provide the path where you want to save, and that database name you have to provide here. So this is the example syntax. Backup, database, demo db. This is the database name. To disk, where you are going to save is C drive db backups demo db.bak. So bak is file extension. So always backup file will be created as .bak. That's why I provided as .bak. Okay. We'll see in SQL Server Management Studio how to create it, how to take the backup from. Now I want to take backup from query. So click on new query, backup, database. Which database you want to take the backup? I want to take demo db. What to do is to disk. So I want to save to disk. Where to save? C colon, always you have to provide in single quote, and slash db backups slash demo db.bak. This is the query. Backup, database name, to disk. So this is the path where you want to take the backup and store. So always this path will be single quote, within the single quote. Okay, I want to save it on C drive db backup. That backup name will be demo db.bak. Now execute the query. So query executed successfully. Now you go to that path C drive DB backups and you check it. So this database has been backed. Okay. So like this you can do backups. So one is design mode, also you can take the backups, and through query also you can take the backups. Now we can restore the database to SQL Server. So we are taken backup once. So we will try to restore this DB. Click on databases, right click, restore databases. Source will be from device because I have a database backup. Click on add DB backups, demo DB. Click on OK. So where you want to save, my destination database will be demo. I want to save it on C drive, DB backups, demo databases. File name will be demo, and my log also I'm storing on demo databases, demo score log. Click on OK. Click on OK. It's executing. Database demo restored successfully. Like this we can restore the database. Today's session we are going to discuss about constraints in SQL Server. Constraints are the rules enforced on the data columns of a table. These are used to limit the type of data that can get into table. This ensures the accuracy and reliability of the data in the database. We can add constraints on column or table level. Okay. The column level constraints are applied only one column, whereas the table level constraints we can apply whole table. These are all the some important constraints we have in SQL Server. I will explain you one by one with the example. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. First one is null constraint. By default, a column can hold null values. When you create a table and you are creating some columns, by default you can assign null values. It will hold the null values. Okay. This is the syntax to create table with the null constraint. We are creating one table. This is the table name we have to give it here. Column name we have to assign. Column name we have to provide here, and what type of data it is, data type we have to provide, and finally we have to constraint we have to provide here. Constraint will be null. Okay, this is the example. We are creating one table here. I'm giving table name as demo. I'm giving column name as id, and the data type is integer. This is our constraint name. So like this you can create multiple columns. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. Constraint we can create in two different ways. Graphically you can create the constraints, as well as we can create through query. First we'll see how to create graphically. Expand the databases. I'm using demo database for this demo. Right click on tables, click on new table. I'm giving column name as id, data type I'm giving here. This is our constraint, whether you want to allow nulls or not. You want to allow nulls, that means it will be constraint will be null, and here name I am creating as, so I want to allow nulls. Right click on the table, demo 1, to expand, refresh on tables. Our table has been created. Check the columns. So id is the column name, data type is integer, and constraint is null. That means it will allow the null values. Name also same like null constraint we provided. We will try to insert some data. Edit the table. I'm giving id. Name I'm not giving anything. Still it is allowing because it by default it will take null values. Here I am not entering id. Here I am adding name. So without entering values also it is accepting. Now we'll see how to add null constraint through query. Click on new query, create table. We can add the constraints while creating tables, as well as after creating tables also we can add the constraint by alter statement. Okay, create table demo2. I want to add some columns here. ID integer. I want to use null constraint here, and the name, and the name I'm creating as null constraint. Click on execute. Our table is created. Refresh on tables, expand. So our null constraint has been created here. After creating table also we can create the null constraints by using alter statement. Next constraint is not null. It ensures that a column cannot have null values. This not null constraint is totally opposite to the null constraints. Whenever user is trying to insert a record without entering a value, that time it will enforce to user to enter the values. Okay. This is the syntax to create not null constraint. We have to create table, and this is the table name we have to provide here, column name, data type, and we have to provide the not null constraint here. So constraints we can create at the time of creating table, as well as after creating table also we can add the constraint by using alter statement. This is very important. This is the example. Create table. We are passing table name here, and this is the column name, data type, and here we are using not null constraint. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll try to create not null constraint. First we'll create not null constraint through design mode. Right click on the tables, click on new table. I'm giving column name as ID integer. I don't want to allow nulls here because this is not null constraint, and the name I am giving as worker. I am allowing nulls. Right click and save table. Demo3 I am giving. If you expand the tables, refresh here, check the columns. So ID is not null constraint we added. For name we added null constraint. We'll try to insert some records and we'll see. ID I am not entering anything. Name only I am entering. It is throwing error message. Cannot insert the value null into column ID. Because it is not null constraint, you can't enter the null values here. If you enter any data, then it will accept. Now we will create not null constraint through query. Click on new query. Create table. I am creating one table. I am using same columns for all the examples so it will be easy for understanding. ID integer. I am giving as not null constraint, and the name I am giving as worker of 50 data type, and I am giving null constraint for this. Click on execute. Our table has been created. Refresh on tables by right clicking on tables. Table created. Expand. Check the column. Our constraints created as we expected. Next constraint is unique constraint. It ensures that all values in a column are different. Suppose user is trying to enter same values again and again, so it will ensure that it should be unique. If user is entering any duplicate values, it will not allow. For this purpose we will use the unique constraint. This is the syntax to create unique constraint. We have to create table name we have to provide here, column names and data types we have to provide. Finally we have to add the constraint name here. This is the example. We are creating one table and we are adding some columns. Finally we are adding constraint. This is the constraint keyboard, and here we are giving constraint name as UC_demo, and this is the constraint unique constraint we are giving. On what column you have to add the constraint. I want to add it for ID column. That's why we are passing here ID. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example. First we'll see how to create unique constraint through design mode. Right click on the tables, new table. I'm giving as ID. Here I am allowing nulls. Name. For ID column I want to add the unique constraint. For that, right click on the ID column. Click on indexes and keys. Click on add. Here select as is unique yes. By default it will be no. You set it as yes if you want to enable the unique. Click on close. Save the table by right clicking. Demo5 I am giving table name. refresh the tables. Our demo 5 has been created. Click on indexes. So our unique constraint has been created here. We will try to insert some records. I am entering any value into the ID because this is the null constraint, so it should accept null values also. I am entering name alone. Again I am trying to insert null value into the ID column. It is showing error here. Cannot insert duplicate key row in object demo 5 with unique index ix demo 5 because this is a duplicate key value. Now I will change it to 1. It's accepting. Now we will try to create unique constraint through query. Click on new query, create table. I'm creating one table called demo 6. Here I am giving ID as column name, data type I am giving as integer, and constraint I am giving as null, and I want name also here. Finally we have to add the constraint here. Here you have to pass the constraint name. I am giving as unique constraint u2, and I am giving table name here for my constraint name, and I want to add unique constraint on ID value. So here we are creating constraint, and this is the constraint name. Here we are creating one unique constraint. So on which column you want to add the unique constraint, that is ID. Click on execute. So it's created. Refresh on tables, expand and check the constraint. Or a constraint has been created here. Next constraint is primary key. This is one of the most important in SQL Server. Most of the times we will use the primary key in SQL Server. So this is the combination of not null and unique. It will act as not null as well as unique. So this is the syntax to create primary key. Create table, we have to provide the table name here, column names, and finally we have to add the constraint. This is the example we are going to do. We are creating some columns with the table, and finally we have to add the constraint. This is the constraint keyword. This is the constraint name. Always primary key will be mentioned as pk underscore constraint name, and primary key we have to add. On which column we have to add the primary key. Whenever you add the primary key, it will not allow any null values. As well as if user is trying to insert duplicate values, it will not allow. That means it will act like unique also. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. First we'll see how to create primary key constraint through design mode. Tables, click on new table, ID, I'm giving integer, I'm allowing nulls, name I'm giving as Waka 50. Here ID also we are allowing nulls. Now we want to add the primary key on ID column. For that select the column, right click, set primary key. Here you observe we are enabling allow nulls. See what will happen after setting primary key. So automatically it removed the allow nulls, because whenever you set the primary key, it will not allow to insert null values. That's why automatically it changed to not null. Okay. Save the table now. I'm saving as demo 7. Expand the tables. Refresh. Check the keys. Our primary key has been created here. Okay. Now we will insert some record into table. Edit. Without any value in the ID column, I am trying to save the record. It's throwing error message. Cannot insert the value null into column ID. I'll enter some values. Now I will try to enter same value again. It's saying violation of primary key because it's a duplicate key value. Click on OK. I'm changing it to 2. Now you can save it. Now we will create primary key constraint through query. Click on new query. Create table. I'm creating one table. I'm creating some columns here. It should be not null, then only it will allow to create the primary key. Name I'm giving as Waka. I'm giving as null. Finally we have to add the constraint here. We have to give the constraint name. I'm giving as demo 8. and we have to add the primary key to. I want to add it on ID. If you want to change column name, you can change, but table can have only one primary key. Okay, click on execute now. It's executed. Refresh on tables. Table created. Check the keys. Our primary key has been created here. Like this, you can create the primary key constraint. Next constraint is foreign key. It uniquely identifies a row record in another table. Actually, it will be used to link multiple tables together. Suppose if you have one table called employees and one more table called department. If you want to link between two tables, you have to use the foreign key. A foreign key is a field in one table that refers to the primary key in another table. The table containing the foreign key is called the child table, and the table containing the primary key is called the referenced or parent table. So in this case we have two tables here. One is employee table and one more is salary table. Here employee ID is the primary key. Here we are referencing as employee ID foreign key in salary table. This is the parent table. This is the child table. Wherever you are creating primary key, that will be parent table, and wherever you are referencing foreign key, that will be child table. Link multiple tables, we will use the foreign key. So this is the syntax to create foreign key. Create table, table name we have to provide here, column names and data types. Finally we have to add the constraint here. So foreign key can be added while creating table. Also we can add the foreign key reference by alter statement. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see an example. Here I have two tables. One is the employee table. I have columns employee ID and employee name as we had seen in the example. And salary table, I have one column called employee ID reference, year, month, salary, age and date of joining. Now I want to create relation between these two tables. That means we have to create primary key for this parent table. Then we have to add the foreign key to this child table. First we'll see how to add the foreign key constraint through design mode. For that, first I want to create one primary key for parent table, that is employee table. I want to add primary key on employee ID. Already we had seen this primary key example. Right click on the column, set primary key, and right click here, save employee. Now we have created one primary key. Now on salary I want to create foreign key. For that, right click again, click on design. I want to add foreign key reference to this employee ID reference. For that, select the table, click on relationships, click on add. Here we have to provide the table columns. We have to specify each column. First we have to select the primary key table is employee table. For now we have to select the employee. Now we have to select the employee table here, and we have to select the primary key column name here. Employee ID is our primary key column name, and foreign key table will be salary. Here we have to select the which column we have to add the foreign key reference, that is employee ID underscore reference. We selected both. This is primary key, this is foreign key. This is the parent table and this is the child table. Click on OK, close, save the table, save the changes. If you expand the employee table, expand the keys, our primary key has been created here. If you expand the salary table, expand the keys, foreign key has been created. Now we will try to insert some records here. Open the employee table. Already some employees are available. Open the salary, edit top 200 rows. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Employee ID has 1, 2, 3, 4 only. Here you can enter only 1 to 4 only. If you are entering other than these records, it will throw the error. Employee ID should be available in parent table. Then only you can insert here. Otherwise, it will not allow to insert here. We'll try to insert some records. I'm giving us one as employee ID. Here I'm entering 2020 John. I'm entering some values here, and date of joining I'm entering.
So employee ID already available as 1. So that's why it's allowed this record to save. Suppose I'm entering as one employee ID where it's not available in the parent table. So it is throwing some error because the insert statement conflicted with the foreign key constraint. Okay. Why it is throwing is this employee ID 99 is not available in the primary table. That's why it is throwing the error. It should be available in parent table. Then only you can insert in the child table here. I'm changing it to 2. Now record has been saved. Now we will try to create foreign key reference through query. Click on new query. First we'll delete this foreign key reference. We are going to add in on same table only. Alter table. We want to add foreign key on salary table. Add foreign key. Here you have to pass the column name. On which column you want to add the foreign key. We want to add it on employee ID underscore reference, and which references to employee table. It refers to employee table and which column. From employee table, this is the primary key table. So what we are doing is we are altering the table salary because we deleted the foreign key, and we are adding foreign key through query. For that I am altering salary table and I am adding one foreign key. So this is the foreign key where we want to add. We want to add foreign key on employee underscore ID underscore reference column, where it references to employee table. Primary key column name we have to provide here. Primary key column ID is employee underscore ID. Now click on execute. Command executed successfully. Refresh on table. Check the keys. Our foreign key has been created. Next constraint is check constraint. It ensures that all the values in a column satisfies a specific condition. Suppose I have one table and I want to add some specific condition in one column. Suppose I have one age column where I want to allow if it is greater than or equal to 18 years. That time I can use the check constraints so that it will validate. If it is condition is satisfied, then only it will insert the record. So this is the syntax to add the check constraint. Create table. We have to create the table name here, and we have to pass the column names and data types here. Finally, we have to add the constraint here. So this is the example. We are creating one table and we are passing some column names and data types and constraints here. Finally, we are adding check constraint where it will check age. If it is greater than or equal to 18, then it will allow to insert, otherwise it will throw the error. This is the constraint keyword and the constraint name, and here we are using check constraint, and we have to pass the column name here, which column you want to validate. That is age column we are passing here. If it is greater than or equal to 18, then only it should allow. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. First we'll see how to add this check constraint through design mode. Right click on the tables. I'm creating one new table here. ID integer. I don't want to allow nulls. Name I'm creating as like 50, and age I am giving as integer here. I don't want to allow nulls. For age I want to add the check constraint. For that right click on the age column, check constraints, click on add. Here you have to pass the expression. For age, if it is greater than or equal to 18, then only it should insert. Okay, click on OK, close, save the table. I'm saving as demo 9. Click on OK, expand the tables, refresh. Table has been created here. Check the constraints. So our check constraint has been created here. Insert some records and we'll check the functionality. Edit top 200 rows. I'm entering ID. I'm giving name. I'm trying to enter the age as 20. It's allowed. I am entering one more record with less than 18 years. With less than 18 years. So it is throwing error message. The insert statements conflicted with the check constraint because we set it as 18 years. It should be greater than or equal to 18 years. Then only it should allow. That's why it's not allowing to save the record. If I enter 18, it will allow. Now we'll see how to add the check constraint through query. Click on new query. Create table. I'm adding some columns. Name. I'm creating one column called age, integer, not null. And finally I want to add the constraint here. For that constraint keyword we have to add. We are going to create check constraint and I'm giving table name here. Check is the constraint on which column we want to add the constraint. Age, and age should be greater than or equal to 18. That's it. We are creating one table. While creating table itself, we are adding one constraint. This is the constraint name. We are going to use check constraint. What is the condition? So what is the condition? For it should be greater, age should be greater than or equal to 18. This column name we are providing here and it will validate as we expected. Click on execute. Table created, refresh here. Expand the table. Check the constraint. Our constraint has been created here. Next constraint is default constraint. It sets a default value to a column when no value is specified. Suppose we have one table where user is not passing any value into one column. Whenever user is not passing any value, I want to insert some default value. For that we will use the default constraint. This is the syntax to create the default constraint. We have to create the table and finally we have to set the default value here. This is the example. We are creating one table here. We are creating some columns. For date of joining we are giving default value as get date. Whenever user is not passing any value to date of joining, we have to insert the current date time. For that we are passing get date time. So here we are using default constraint. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see how to create default constraint. First we'll see how to create default constraint through design mode. Right click on the tables, click on new table, ID, integer, name. Here I am giving date of joining. Here I am giving date of joining, date time. I don't want to allow nulls. Whenever user is not entered date of joining, I want to insert default value. For that what to do is click on the column, click on default value or binding. Here I want to insert get date. Get date will get we will get it current date time. So I am using same function here to get the date time. Click on now save the table. Table saved. Expand the tables. Refresh. Demo 11. See here constraint, it is created default constraint. We will try to insert some records into this table. I am creating one record here. I am entering date of joining. It is inserted. And one more record I am entering without entering date of joining. I am just skipping. I am not entering any value into the date of joining. Execute the query. See, it is inserted by default this date time. Now we'll see how to create default constraint through query. Click on new query. Create table. I'm creating one table here. ID, teacher and not null, and I want name and giving null constraint. Then finally I want date of joining as date time, and I want to set default constraint for date of joining. Whenever user is not entered any values, that time I want to insert current date time. Click on execute. So already table is available, so we will create as demo 12. Click on execute. Our table created. Refresh on tables. Demo 12 is created. Expand the constraint. Our default constraint has been created here. Next is index constraint. It is used to create and retrieve data from the database very quickly. Suppose if you have large database and if we have more data, that time we will use the index constraint to get the data quickly. This is the syntax to create index. Create index, we have to provide the index name here. On which table you want to create index, you have to provide the table name here. On which column you want to provide the index, that column name also you have to provide. So this is the example to create index. Create index, we are providing index name here, and you have to provide the table name here, and column name is employee name. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see how to create index constraint. First we'll see how to add the index constraint through design mode. To add index constraint to my salary table, right click on the table, click on design. I want to add it on salary. Click on the column name, click on indexes slash keys. I want to add one index. So this is my index name. So type is index. Click on close. Now right click, save the table. Refresh the table. Check on indexes. Our index has been created. Now we will try to add the index constraint through query. Click on new query. For this I am creating one index. I have to provide index name here. I want to create on year. I'll give it name as ix underscore year. On which table, you have to provide the table name here. I want to create on salary table, and we have to pass the column name. So we are creating one index. This is the index name. On salary table we are creating index for year column. Click on execute. Executed successfully. Refresh on this table. Check the indexes. Our index has been created. Like this you can create through query. Today's session we will discuss about auto increment in SQL Server. In SQL Server we will use the identity keyword for auto increment. It will allow unique number to be generated automatically when a new record is inserted into a table. Whenever there is a new record is inserted, I want to insert one unique number to identify that row. Okay, for that we will use the identity column here, and most of the times we will use it for primary key values. This identity value will be inserted by the SQL Server. This is the syntax to enable auto increment by using identity. We are creating one table here. Table name we have to provide here, column name, then you have to provide the data type, and you have to provide the identity here, and what type of constraint you want. Here you can pass the constraint. This is the example we are going to discuss. We are creating one table and we are creating some columns called ID and name. For ID we want to set the identity, that means auto incrementing. Whenever you set the identity, it will increment by 1. If you want to change, you can change this value also. We are incrementing by 1. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see how to enable auto increment by using identity. For this example, I am using SQL Server 2012 and I am using Windows authentication. If you want, you can change to SQL Server authentication by providing login and password. I am using Windows authentication for this time. Click on connect. Expand the database. I am using demo database for this example. Here to set the identity, you can use two different types. So graphically, you can set the identity for auto increment. Also you can enable the identity through query. First we'll see how to add the identity through design mode. I click on the tables, click on new table. I'm creating as ID integer. I'm not allowing nulls, and I'm creating name here. I'm allowing nulls here. For ID column, I am setting as primary key. This will be unique value. So I want to enable auto increment for this ID. Whenever user is entering the values, I don't want to allow user to enter the values for ID column. For that, what we have to do is we have to set the identity here. Go to identity specification, set it as is identity is yes. By default, identity increment will be 1. If you want to change, you can change the 2 also. By default, we are setting 1 here. Right click and save the table. I am giving us demo for this table name. Now we'll try to insert some records. Refresh here. Our table has been created. Now we will try to insert some records into this table. Edit top 200 rows. I'm trying to enter the value. It is not allowing to enter the values because it is set it as identity. I'm entering name here. See, by default it is taken 1. I'm trying to insert one more record here. It is incremented by 1. Now we will create one more table and we will try to set the identity increment as 2. Right click on the tables, new table, ID, and not allowing nulls, name. So this I am setting as primary key, and for ID I want to enable identity specification. I am enabling as yes, it is identity column, and I want to increment with 2. Right click on the table, save, demo 1, table name I gave it as demo 1, refresh on tables. Now edit the table records. I am entering record here. By default it taken 1. Now I will try to insert one more record. See, it is incremented by 2. Like this you can use the identity keyword to enable the auto increment. Now we will see how to add the identity through query. Click on new query. I am creating one table. Remove 2. I am adding some columns here. And I want to give it identity for ID column, and I want to keep it as primary key, and I am giving name, whereas it's not null. Execute this. The table is created. Expand the tables, refresh, table created. We'll try to insert the values. I'm creating name. So ID column it's not allowing to enter the values, so it is incremented by 1. Like this you can use the auto increment option by using identity keyword here.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is part 6 of SQL Server tutorial. In today's session we will discuss about date types in SQL Server. So we have different data types in SQL Server. So dates also one of the data type. So in dates we have different types of formats, that is date, date time, small date time and timestamps. Date format will be year, month and date will be there. Date time means it will be added along with the date, hour, minutes, seconds and fractional seconds will be added together. Small date time it will be added date and time, fractional seconds will not be here. Date time only we have fractional seconds, and small date time we don't have that one. Small date time will consider year, month, date, hours, minutes and seconds only it will store. Timestamp, it is a unique number will be generated. Whenever you are taking data type as timestamp, one unique number will be generated and the timestamp will be stored in binary format. Whenever there is a change in the data, that time it will be incremented automatically by the SQL Server. These data types we can assign at the time of creating table. Also we can add the date data type after creating tables also by using alter statement. We'll see one by one with the examples. This is the date syntax. Whenever you are creating table, if you want to add the date, you have to create table, table name you have to provide here, column name, and here data type will be there. In our case, if you want to assign the date as data type, here we have to pass the date. This is the example we are going to see in today's session. We will create one table called demo and we'll create some columns, and here we have to add the data type. In our case, date is the data type. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. So in this example, I'm using SQL Server 2012 for demo purpose and I'm using Windows authentication. Click on connect. It is connected to my SQL Server. Expand the databases. I'm going to use demo database for this example. Here you can create tables in two different ways. One is graphically you can create, and you can create through query. Already in previous videos I have explained how to create tables in design mode as well as through query. If you have not seen my previous videos, please watch my previous videos. So right click on the tables to create table, new table. I am giving as column name ID and data type I am giving as integer. I don't want to allow nulls here. I am taking one more column called name. I am giving data type as varchar 50 characters. Here I want date of joining column. I am giving as doj. Here we can select the data type. We have different data types here, so we have to select date here. I am selecting date here. I click on the table, save table. It is asking for table name. I am giving as demo. Click on OK. Expand the tables. Our table has been created. We will edit top 200 rows. I am inserting some values here. So date of joining I am entering as 2020 John 1. It is taking date in. We will try to add time also and then we'll see how it will treat. I am entering some time here. See, even if you are entering time also, it is treating only date values only, it's considering. That means year, month and date format only it will accept. If you are entering other than these values also, it will consider only this date format. Okay. Now we'll see how to add date through query. Click on new query. We will create one more table. I'm creating demo 1. Here we need some columns, ID, integer, and I don't want to allow nulls here, and I'm creating one name. Then finally I need date of joining here. We need date. So this is the data type we have to pass. We are passing as date because we are going to save only date in the date of joining. Okay. Click on execute. It's executed. Refresh on your tables. Our table is created. So see, like this you can assign the date data type into your table. So it depends on your requirement. If you want to store only date, then you can select the data type as date. If you want to store time also, then you can use the date time. It depends on our requirement. Okay. So next one is date time. This, whenever we want to save the date along with the time, that time we will use the date time data type. Okay. This is the syntax to create date time. Create table, column name and data types we have to provide. This is the example. Create table, we have to provide the table name here. Here we are providing column and this is the data type. Here we are taking one joining date column, and for that we want to save date and time also. So that's why we are using data type as date time. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. First we'll see graphically how to create the table along with the date time data type. Here I am creating one table. Right click on the table, new table. I am taking column name ID, integer, I don't want all nulls. Username I am taking here. I want to store logged in date time. For that I will give the data type as date and time. So right click here, save table. I am giving table name as demo2. Click on OK. Expand our tables. Refresh here. Our table created. Edit top 200 rows and we'll see the demo. We'll try to insert some records. here we have to capture the date time. For that I am entering some date time here. See, here it is storing year, month, date, along with that timings also it is storing. This is hours, minutes, seconds and fractional seconds also it is storing. If you are not passing any values, that time automatically it will take the 0. Suppose I am inserting one more record here. I am passing only date value here. So it will take all zeros because we have not passed any times. So by default SQL Server will insert 0. Now we will create one table through query and we'll check how to add the date time data type to SQL Server table. Click on new query, create table. I am creating one table. We have to provide the table name. Then we have to add the columns here along with the data type. And I am giving as username here for my column name. I am giving as Waka 50 and I want to store logged in date time here. For that I am using data type as date time. Click on execute. Our table is created. Refresh here, expand the tables and check the columns. So we have created our table with the date time. So it depends on your requirement whether you want to save the date alone or date with the time. So based on requirement we have to use the data types. Next date type is small date time. This is the syntax for small date time. Create table, we have to provide the table name here, column name and data types. Small date time will store the year, month, date along with the hour, minutes and seconds. This will not allow fractional seconds here. In date time, previous example we had seen, it will allow fractional seconds also, but whereas small date time it will not allow fractional seconds. It will insert year, month, date, hours, minutes and seconds only. So this is the example we are going to see. Create, this is the table name we are giving. Here we are creating some columns and we are giving data types. Here you have to give data type as small date time for adding small date time data type. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. We'll create one table with the small date time. First we'll use in design mode. Right click on the tables, new table. I'm creating ID. I don't want to allow nulls. Username. I'm giving data type. Here I want to store logged in small date time. So here we can give it as small date time as my data type. Right click here, save table. I am giving table name as demo6. Click on OK. Refresh here. Our table is created. We'll insert some records. Edit top 200 rows. So we will enter some values here. 1. I'm giving my username as demo. Logged in date I'm giving as 091012. So in previous example we had seen with the date time it will allow fractional seconds also, whereas in small date time it will allow only hours, minutes and seconds. It's not accepting fractional seconds. Even if you try to add fractional seconds also, it will not allow because it's not the valid data. So we will try to insert one more record as demo1. So I am not entering any hours. By default it will take 00 only. Next we'll see how to add the small date time through query. Click on new query, create table. I am giving table name as demo7 and I am going to add some columns here. ID is my column name, data type and this is the constraint I am giving as not null. I want to give I want to give username here. Data type I am providing. I want to store logged in. I want to store logged in. Small date time I want to store here. Here you can give the data type as small date time. That's it. Click on execute. Our table is created. You can expand the tables and you can check that. So refresh here. Our demo 7 is created. You can expand the columns and you check it. Small date time added to the logged in underscore small date time column. Like this you can use the small date time. Next date type is timestamp. Whenever you use the timestamp, it will generate one unique number and that unique number will be stored in binary format. Especially this timestamp will be used in link queue concept. When if there is any change in the row, we need to identify. For that purpose, we will use the timestamp in link queue. This is the syntax to add timestamp to your table. We are creating one table here. We are creating some columns and we are providing data type. In our case, we have to give the data type as timestamp. This is the example. Create table. Table name is we are giving as demo, and this is my column and data type. So here we are passing timestamp as data type. So whenever there is a new record is inserted, automatically timestamp will be inserted by the SQL Server and this timestamp will be stored as binary format. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. First we'll see how to add the timestamp to a table through design mode. Right click on the tables, new table. I'm giving as ID, integer. I don't want to allow nulls. Name, 50. I want to store my row version and I want to give it as timestamp here. Save the table. I am giving my table name as demo 8. Click on OK. Expand the tables and refresh. Our table is created. You can check the columns. Timestamp has been added to your table. Edit top 200 rows. We will insert some data and we'll check how it works the timestamp. I am providing name here. Version I am not providing anything. See binary data. If you check the table with the select query, we will check the data by using select query. Demo 8 is my table name. Demo 8, execute. See, this is stored as binary data. Suppose if there is any change in these values, automatically this version name will be changed. We will check that one also. This is our data. We will make it as test1. I am not changing anything in the version. Previously it was. We will copy this data and we will paste it here. So previous data was this one. Now we will try to execute this query. See, now it is automatically incremented. Okay, so to identification will be easy in the link queue concept. It of the times this timestamp will be used in link queue concept. Okay, now we'll see how to add the timestamp through query. Click on new query, create table. I am creating one more table called demo 9. We will add some columns here. Integer not null. I am giving name here. Data type I am giving as varchar 50 and I am giving as row version here and I am giving as timestamp as my data type. Click on execute. It's executed successfully. Refresh on your tables. Table is created. Check the columns. So timestamp created to row version. So like this you can use the different date types in SQL Server.
In today's session, we are going to discuss about functions in SQL Server. We have two types of functions in SQL Server. One is system-defined functions and another one is user-defined functions. Under system-defined functions, we have two types of functions. One is scalar functions and another one is aggregate functions. Under user-defined functions, we have different types of functions. One is scalar functions, next inline table valued functions. Finally, we have multi-statement table valued functions. We are going to discuss about each function with the examples. Please watch this video till the end for better understanding. Okay. First, we'll see what is function. Function is a database object in SQL Server. A function have a name and a function name can never start with the special characters like @ dollar, hash, etc. Okay. So while creating any function, we should not use special characters and we have to provide the name for function. So without providing name, we can't create a function. Functions only work with the select statements. We can use only select statements inside the function. We can't use other than select statements. Okay. This is the one main important point is functions every time it will compile. Functions must return a value or result. Whenever we are creating a function, it should must return a value or result. That is nothing but our output. Functions only work with input parameters. Whenever we are creating any functions, we have to provide the input parameter. Without input parameters, it will not work. Today's session, we are going to discuss about system defined functions. What is mean by system defined function? So what are all the features available inside the system defined functions? We are going to see these things. System defined functions are built-in database functions. Whenever we install Microsoft SQL Server, so these functions will be inbuilt available with the database itself. Okay. We have two types of system defined functions in SQL Server. One is scalar functions, another one is aggregate functions. Now we will switch to SQL Server and we'll see how to access the system defined functions in SQL Server. I am going to use Microsoft SQL Server 2012. I am going to use Windows authentication here. If you want, you can use SQL Server authentication by providing login ID and password. Click on Windows authentication. You have to select your server name here, or you can provide dot, that means it's local. Click on connect. We will create one database for testing purpose and we'll see what are all the functions available inside the database. Right click on the database, click on new database. So database name I'm giving as test. Here you can select the path where you want to save the database. So I'm selecting D drive. I want to save inside the SQL data. Click on OK. For log file also we have to select the path. I'm selecting same path as SQL data. Click on OK. Our database has been created here. Expand the database. Go to programmability. Expand the functions. Here we have lot of functions. So these are all the functions called system defined functions. Along with SQL Server, we have all these inbuilt functions. So we are discussing about system defined functions. Expand the system functions. Here category wise segregated. All our functions are segregated category wise. These are all called aggregate functions, configuration functions. So in next sessions we are going to discuss in detail about all these functions. Okay. So these are all called system functions. If you expand this one, see here functions available. So we are going to use, suppose if you want to check the average of a column, so we have to use the inbuilt function of average. Okay, expand any other things, string functions. We have lot of inbuilt functions available. So lot of system defined functions are available inside SQL Server. Okay. So like this we can check what are all the functions available. Based on our requirement we can use the function. In today's session we are going to discuss about scalar functions under system defined functions. Scalar functions is nothing but it's operate on a single value and it returns single value. Whenever we use scalar function, we have to provide one input parameter. Also, we will get one single value as a output value. We have some important scalar functions in SQL Server. So we are going to discuss about each function with the example. This is the absolute function where it returns an absolute number for the given number. Whatever number we provide as a input parameter, it returns the absolute number. So this is the syntax for absolute function. We have to provide one input parameter. While trying with the table, we have to provide the table column name. In real time, we will use this absolute function with the table name. So whenever we are using with the table, so we have to provide the column name here. So this is the example. We are going to use the select query and we have to provide the absolute function and we have to provide one input parameter here. So whenever you are using with the table, you have to provide the table column name. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example. Before continuing with this session, I would request you all, please subscribe to my channel and click on bell icon for notification alerts. Select, we have to use the absolute function and we can provide the number, whatever the number you want. Execute, so it will return the absolute value. Suppose I am giving one negative value. Click on execute. Even though if we provide input parameter as a negative number, we will get the absolute value only. That you will not get this negative. Okay. Suppose I am using one positive number where I am doing sum here. Try to execute. So we are getting the absolute number here. Suppose what I am doing is minus 10 plus 9 I am giving. One negative number and one positive number I am providing. Click on execute. Even though if you provide the negative number, you will get the positive number. Okay. This is the absolute function where we will use in SQL Server. We'll try to use this same function with the one of our table. I have one database called demo where I have one table called product master. First we'll see the records available in this table. So I have different records here. So this absolute function we can use it on with the number only. So without number we can't use it for like string and all. We can't use the absolute function. Okay. We will implement this absolute function on price. Okay. For that, select absolute function we are going to use. What we have to do is we have to provide column name here. So execute this. So we are getting all the values. Even though we have one negative number here, but here after using absolute function we are getting as a absolute number only. Like this we can use absolute function with the SQL Server. Next is round function. This function rounds a number to a specified number of decimal places. Whenever we want to round up one number, so we have to provide the specified number of decimals which we want to round off. For that we will use the round function. So this is the syntax for round function. Select round, number is the input parameter and decimals we have to provide. How many decimals we want to make it as round off, and operation is, it's a optional parameter. So I will explain you about the operation. And if you are using with the table column, that time we have to use this query. Select round, we have to provide the table column name and how many decimals we have to make it round off. So that decimals we have to provide here. This operation is anyway it's optional parameter and we have to provide the table name here. This number is mandatory field. Then decimals also mandatory field. So how many places we want to round off that number, so we have to use the number here. Next, operation is a optional parameter. If the value is 0, it rounds the result to the number of decimals. Okay, if the value is other than 0, then it truncates the result of the number of decimals. Whatever the decimals we are getting in the result, it will truncate if we are using other than 0. By default, this operation value will be 0. Even though you are not providing operation, system will treat it as 0. This is the example for round function. Select round, we are providing one number here and we are providing decimals. So next, one more example with the operation also we are using. Okay, select round, so we have to provide the number and decimals. Also we are providing operation also. So whenever you are using with the table, we have to provide the table column name, decimals and operation. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the round example. To use round function, we need select query. So round function we are going to use. And we have to provide how many places we want to round off. Try to execute. So we provided 0.425, whereas we are rounding off to 2 digits. So we are getting 25.430. Suppose I am making as 1 digit. Execute now. So it's rounding off to 1 digit only. So now we will try to use operation also. By default operation will be 0. So that time it will not truncate decimal places, only it will work on decimals only, number of decimals. Here now I am providing truncate also for by using operation. Click on execute. So now it's truncating this decimal places also. Like this we can use the truncate function. So now same round function we will use with the table also. So this is our table where we will take one product ID called 1 and we will try to round off this price. Okay. For that what we have to do, select round off. Here we have to provide the price column name price and I want to round off to 2 digits and we have to provide the table name here, that is product master, and we need product ID 1 only. For that we have to put where condition where product ID is 1. I want only one product. Try to execute where actual value is 10.247. Execute now. So it's round off to 2 digits. You can try with the 3 digits also. Execute. It's now change. So we'll try with 1 digit. Execute. So it's rounding off to 1 digit. Now with the same round off function we will use operation also. So I want to make it round off to 2 digits and I am using operation as 1. Execute. So it's truncating. So if we use only decimals we are getting as 10.25. When you use it for operation then you are getting 10.24. So that means it's truncating decimal values. So like this you can use the round function. Next is upper function. This function converts a string to uppercase. This upper function what it will do is whatever the input parameter we are passing as a string, it will convert into uppercase. If you are passing uppercase string then it will not change anything. If you are passing any lowercase string then it will convert into uppercase. This is the syntax for upper function. Select upper is the function name and we have to provide the string here. Or if you are using with the table then you have to pass the column name as input parameter. This is the example. Select upper. We are going to provide one lowercase string so that it will convert into upper. While using with the table we have to provide the column name as input parameter. We'll see the example for upper function. Select upper is the function name where we have to provide the string here. Whenever we are providing string as a input parameter, we have to use the single quote. Within single quote, we have to provide our string. So this is my string. I want to convert into upper. Click on execute. It's converted into uppercase. Suppose I'll try to use the uppercase letter. So that time there will not be any change. As it is, it will display because it's already uppercase string. Okay. Suppose if you are using any number, there is no issues, but there will not be any change in the output because it's already number. Okay. Now we have one table product master. So whereas we have some lowercase letters, we want to convert all these product names with the uppercase. For that I'm using select statement with the upper function, and I have to pass the column name. Column name is product name, and we have to call table name here. So try to execute now. So this is actual table where some lowercase product names available, whereas after using uppercase it will convert all the product names into uppercase. Okay. Like this we can use the upper function. Next function is its lower function. It's opposite to upper function. So whatever the input we are providing as a string, it will convert into lower case. So this is the syntax for lower function. You have to provide the input parameter as string, and when you are using with the table, then you have to provide column name as a input parameter. So this is the example. We are going to provide one uppercase string. It will convert into lower. So while using with the table, we will provide the column name here. You'll see the example. Select lower. Here we have to provide input string. That's why I'm using single quote. And I'm giving as uppercase string so that it will convert into lowercase. Click on execute. It's converting into lowercase. Suppose I'm using lower function with the input parameter also lowercase. Click on execute. There will not be any change in the output because it's already lowercase string we passed as a input parameter, so there will not be any change. Okay. Same function we will use with the table. We have product master table where this product id 2 is having product name uppercase, so we will try to convert this into lowercase. Select star from product master where product id is 2. So this is the actual record. We will convert this product name into lowercase. For that we have to use lower function, and we have to pass product name as input parameter. Try to execute this one. Click on execute. So it's converted into lowercase. So like this we can use the lower function. Next is ltrim function. This function will remove the spaces from the left hand side of given string. What this ltrim function will do is, whenever we are passing any parameter as a string with the left side spaces, so it will remove all the left hand side spaces and it will return as a output. Okay. So this is the syntax. Select ltrim. So we have to pass this string here. If there is any spaces available in the left hand side, it will remove the spaces and it will give the output. Okay. When we are using with the table, we have to provide the column name for that. So this is the example. Select ltrim is the function name, and we have to provide the string. Whenever we are passing string as a parameter, we have to use the single quote. We'll see the example on ltrim function. Select ltrim is the function name, and we are going to use the string as a input parameter. For that I'm using single quotes. I'm providing some spaces. So I provided extra spaces here left hand side, and click on execute. So there is no spaces here. You can check it here. There is no space. Okay. But I'm providing space on right hand side. Click on execute. Copy the string of output. See, right hand side it's not remove the spaces because we used ltrim. Ltrim will do only left hand side only, it will check and it will try to remove the extra spaces like this. Okay. This ltrim function we will use with one table. This is, I have one table product master where I have one product name with the extra spaces. You can see here. We will remove this extra space from the product name. Okay. For that, this product id is 3. This is the product name. So we will try to remove these left hand side spaces. For that I am using ltrim, and I have to provide product name. Product name is the column name for this column. Click on execute. So it has been removed. See this. So there is no extra spaces from left side. So like this we can use the ltrim function. Next function is rtrim. What it will do is it is opposite to ltrim. So whatever the spaces available from the right hand side of given string, so it will try to remove these spaces and it will give us a output. Okay. This is the syntax for rtrim. Select rtrim and we have to pass input parameter as string. While using with the table, we have to pass the column name as input parameter. And this is the example. Select rtrim, we have to provide this string. So while passing string, we have to use this single quote. Okay. While using rtrim function with the table, then we have to use the column name here. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the one example for rtrim function. Select rtrim is the function name, and we have to pass the string here. For that I'm using single quotes. So I'm providing some spaces on the right side. Click on execute. So that right hand side spaces will be removed. But if we add any spaces in the left hand side, execute, so that will not be removed, because ltrim will be used for left hand side spaces and rtrim will be used for right hand side spaces. If you want to remove both, that time what you have to do is ltrim you have to use, then rtrim. Now execute. Now it is removed from both the sides. You can check it. So there is no spaces on left side and right side. Okay. So now we'll see this same function, rtrim function, with the table. So this is the table. I have extra spaces on right hand side. You can check it here. So that is the product ID 4. Now we will implement rtrim function on this product name. Select star from product master. This is the table and we need column name 4. So this is the product master and we need product ID 4. Execute. So this is the product name where we have right hand side spaces. We will use rtrim function and we have to provide the column name here. While passing column name, we no need to provide single quotes. While providing only direct string value only, we have to provide the single quotes. Okay. Product name. Try to execute this. So now right hand side spaces has been removed. So like this we can use the rtrim function. In today's session we are going to discuss about aggregate functions in SQL Server. Aggregate functions operates on a collection of values and it returns a single value. Whenever we use aggregate function, so we will use it on collection of values. Finally we will get one single value as a output. We have some important aggregate functions in SQL Server. We are going to discuss about each function with the example. So first we will see about minimum function. So it returns smallest value of the selected column. Whenever we are using minimum function, it will select the lowest value of the selected column. So this is the syntax to use minimum function. Select min is the function name and we have to pass the column name of a table and we have to pass the table name here. This is the example. Select min is the function and we are going to pass input parameter as salary column from the employee master table. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for minimum function. So I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server 2012 for this example and I'm going to use Windows authentication here. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. We are going to use the demo database for this example. Expand the tables. This is the table we are going to use for all our aggregate functions. Click on new query. First we'll see the records from the employee master. So this is the employee master table where we have some employee names with the salary. We want to check the minimum salary of a employee. Okay, that means lowest salary of a employee. For that, select min is the function name and we have to pass the column name. Column name is salary from employee master. Execute this. So 12,000 is the minimum salary. Okay, that is the lowest salary. You can check it here. Order by salary to check the lowest salary. So 12,000 is the minimum salary. Okay, so like this we can use the minimum function with the SQL Server to get the minimum value. Next is maximum function. It returns the largest value of the selected column. It's opposite to minimum function. So where minimum function it will return the lowest value of the selected column. Maximum function will return the largest value of the selected column. Okay, this is the syntax for maximum function. Same like minimum function, we have to pass the column name and we have to provide the table name also. We are going to use select query for that. This is the example. Select max, we have to pass the column name, so we are passing as salary as input parameter and where we will get the maximum salary from employee master table. Okay, we'll see the example for this. So here I am going to use, instead of minimum, maximum I want to use. Execute. So maximum salary is 85,000. If you want to check it, this we will use descending order where 85,000 is the highest salary in employee master. Okay, so like this we can use the maximum function in SQL Server. Count function, it returns the number of rows that matches specified criteria. Suppose I have one table where I want to take the count, how many records available in the table, and also we can use the some conditions also here. Here I am going to use count function and we will try to extract the number of records available in the table. Okay, this is the syntax. Select count is the function and we are going to pass one column name as the input parameter and we have to pass the table name. This is the example. Select count, we are going to pass employee ID from employee master. We are going to count the number of employee IDs available in the table. Also you can pass as star also, it means all the records. It will select the count of all the records, how many rows available in the table. We'll see the example in SQL Server. This is the employee master. So here we know how many records available, but by using count we have to check the number of records available in this table. Execute now. So 16 records available. Whenever we pass star, it will treat it as all the records. Also we can use the column name also here. Suppose employee ID I am passing, I want to take the count of employee ID. 16 records we found. Okay, like this we can use count function. Next is average function. It returns the average value of a column from the table. Okay, whenever we are using average function, we have to pass the input parameter as numeric only. We can't pass the value other than numeric values. Okay, so this is the syntax. Select average, we have to pass the column name and we have to pass the table name also. So this is the example for average function. Select average salary from employee master. We want to get the average salary from the employee master. We have 16 records in the employee master. We want to know that, so what is the average salary paying to employees? For that we will use the average function. We'll see the example in SQL Server. Select star from employee master and I want to check average of salary. So what is the average salary we are paying to employees? For that, execute. 44,056. If you want to check, you can check it. So this is the value we are passing. I'm copying entire data. So I'll open Excel. So this is the average, 44,056. 44,056 rupees. Okay, like this we can use the average function in SQL Server. Next is sum function. It returns the total sum of a column. Also, while using sum function, we have to pass the numeric data type only. So other than numeric, it will not accept. Okay, this is the syntax for sum function. Select sum, and we have to pass the input parameter as a column name, and we have to pass the table name also. This is the example. Select sum, and we are passing salary. We want to know the how much salary we are paying for all the employees. So we have to pass table name also. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for sum function. So I want to know how much we are paying salary for all the employees. For that, I'm using sum function. I'm passing input parameter as salary, and I'm providing table name also here. Click on execute. This is the total salary we are paying, 7,04,900. Already we copied here. We can check it here, 7,04,900 rupees. So like this, we can use the sum function in SQL. In today's session, we are going to discuss about user-defined functions in SQL Server. We are going to discuss about what is meant by user-defined function and what are all the different types of user-defined functions available in SQL Server, and what is the advantages of user-defined functions and what are all the disadvantages from user-defined functions. These are all the things we are going to discuss in today's session. First, we'll discuss about user-defined functions. What is meant by user-defined functions? These functions are created by the user. In previous sessions, we have discussed about system-defined functions where it is inbuilt available with the SQL Server. So these user-defined functions are created by the user. By default, it will not be available. Based on our requirement, we can create the functions in SQL Server. That's called user-defined functions. We have three types of user-defined functions in SQL Server. One is scalar function, one more is inline table value function. Finally, we have multi-statement table value function. We are going to discuss about each function with the examples in next sessions. So we'll see the advantages of user-defined functions. So these user-defined functions can be used in a number of places without any restrictions as compared to stored procedures. So compared to stored procedures, these functions can be used number of places without any restrictions. In next sessions, we are going to discuss about stored procedures. So what is meant by stored procedure and how to create it and all. Okay. User-defined functions can be made less complex and easier to write. Parameters can be passed to the function. We can pass the input parameters to functions. These user-defined functions can be used to create joins and also be used in a select, where or case statements. There is no restrictions. And also it is very easy to invoke. This is important advantage of user-defined functions. It's very easy to invoke. So now we will discuss about what are all the disadvantages by using user-defined functions. We cannot use temporary tables inside the user-defined function. We can't use any temporary table inside the user-defined functions. We cannot use the print command inside the user-defined functions. Normally in stored procedures we can use the print command, whereas user-defined functions we can't use the print command. We can't use the insert, update and delete commands while creating user-defined functions. We can only use these commands on the table variable defined inside the function. We cannot use the try catch statement inside the function for the debugging purpose, which makes it is very difficult to debug. Whenever we are creating stored procedures, we can use the try catch block, where if there is any error, we can easily catch that error. Whereas in user-defined functions, we can use the try catch statement. So this is one major disadvantage in user-defined functions. We can't use transactions inside the functions. We can't use the transaction inside the function. Also, we can't call the stored procedure from inside the function. Whenever you are creating any user-defined function, we can't call the stored procedure from function. We can't return multiple record sets from a function, as we can do in case of stored procedures. In stored procedures, we can get the multiple record sets, whereas user-defined functions, we can't get the multiple record sets. That is one major disadvantage. In today's session, we are going to discuss about scalar functions under user-defined functions.
This user defined scalar functions also returns a single value as a result of actions performed by the function. So as we discussed in previous sessions, system defined scalar function also returns the single value. Also user defined function also returns one single value only. Also in user defined functions we can return any data type from a function. This is the syntax for scalar functions. Whenever we are creating any function, we have to provide the function name. Create is a keyword, function is keyword, and we have to provide the function name here. And here we have to pass the input parameters for scalar function. Also, whenever we are passing input parameter, we have to provide the data type also. What type of data we are providing as a input. We can use more than two parameters also. For this example, I am giving as two parameters here. We can pass more than two parameters also. This scalar function will return one output. For that we have to provide the data type. What type of data we are going to return. Inside function we are using select query to join both the input values and we are returning as a single value as output. So here we are using concatenation to join the both the input values. We'll see the example for this scalar function. So this is the example we are going to see in SQL Server. We will create one function. This is the function name we are providing. We are passing two input parameters. One is name and one is designation. For both the parameters, we are providing data type as varchar and we are giving length of the parameter also. 50 characters we are passing. It will return varchar only because both the input parameters we are passing as varchar. It will return as varchar only and we have to define the size also. Inside function we are using select query to both the values and we are sending output as a single value. So this is the example. We have one table called employee master where the table contains name and designation in separate columns. We want to join as a name and designation, name hyphen designation. To get this output we are going to create one scalar function so that we will pass this name as a input parameter and designation also input parameter so that it will return as name hyphen designation. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see this example. I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server 2012 for this example and I'm using Windows authentication. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. We are going to use demo database for this example. Click on new query to create function. Create function. We have to provide the function name. We are going to create one user defined function. That's why I'm using as UDF user defined function and get employee name and designation. So this is my function name where we have to pass input parameter. For this we need name here and we have to provide the data type and we have to provide the size for the data type. Also we need designation here. We are going to pass two parameters. You can use more than two parameters also. So I am creating one more designation parameter with the varchar 50. Okay, whereas it will returns string only because we are passing input parameter as name and designation. We are going to get name and designation as a output parameter. For that I am using data type as varchar begin. So inside the function we have to create one select query. Here we have to call the select query select name and we need designation also. That is we have to pass the parameter designation. Click on execute. So our function is created here. Expand the programmability. Under functions, expand the scalar valued functions. Our function has been created here. Now we'll see how to execute a scalar function in SQL Server. Now we have created scalar function. We have to execute the scalar function to get the output value. For that, this is the syntax to execute a scalar function. Select, we are going to use select query, and we have to pass this function name here, and we have to pass input parameters. That is, we are going to pass two input parameters, and we will get the output from the table. So this is the example. Select, this is our function name and designation we are going to provide, and we will get output as name and designation. So here we can give any name, there is no restriction. So, and we are going to get it from employee master table. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll try to execute this scalar function. So we have one employee master table where I am going to pass input parameter as name and designation. I want to get output as name hyphen designation. For that, we have to execute our function. So this is our function name. You can drag and drop here. We have to use select query for this, and we have provided our function name, and then we have to pass our input parameters here. One is name and designation. Then we will get name and designation as name and designation. From we have to provide the table name here, that is employee master table. This is our table. We are going to execute our scalar function, and we are passing input parameter as name and designation, where output we will get it as name and designation. Okay, click on execute. So we are getting output as name and designation. So like this we can use these scalar functions in today's session. We are going to discuss about inline table valued functions. This function returns data as a table. In previous sessions we have discussed about scalar functions where data will be returned as a single value. Inline table valued functions, output we will get as a table. We can use the table valued function just like a table. These inline table valued functions are equivalent to our SQL table. This is the syntax for inline table valued function. Create function, these are keywords. Here we have to provide the function name. Also we can pass multiple input parameters for inline table valued function along with the data type we have to pass, where it will return as a table. Output we will get it as table. Here we have to pass our select statement. This is the example. Create function. Here we are providing function name, and here we are passing employee ID along with the data type. It will return table, and here we are using our select statement along with the input parameter. We have one table called employee master where it contains employee information. From this employee master we have to extract one employee information based on employee ID. For that we are going to create one inline table valued function where it will extract employee information based on employee ID. We will pass this employee ID to our inline table valued function. It will extract the data like this. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll create one inline table valued function, and we'll try to extract the data from employee master. I'm using Microsoft SQL Server 2012 for this example, and I'm going to use Windows authentication. If you want, you can use the SQL Server authentication by providing login ID and password. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. Expand the database called demo. We are going to use demo database. Expand the tables. And we have one table called employee master. We are going to use this table for this example. Just check the records from this table. It contains employee information. We will create one inline table valued function, and we will pass this employee ID to extract the data. To create inline table valued function, click on database, new query, create function. We have to provide the function name.
This is my function name. Here we can pass the input parameter. We are going to pass employee ID as a input parameter, and the data type will be integer, where it returns output as a table. Here we have to write our select statement, that is select star from. We have to provide our table name employee master, where employee ID we have to filter. This is our input parameter. We have to pass it here. Click on execute. So our function is created. Expand the programmability, expand the functions, expand the table valued functions. Our function has been created here. Now we'll see how to execute a inline table valued function. This is the syntax to execute inline table valued function. Just like how we will use select query in SQL Server, like that we can call this inline table valued function. Select star from. Here we have to pass the function name and input parameter we have to pass. This is the example, select star from. This is the function name, and here we have to pass the input parameter. If we don't have any input parameter, then directly we can execute the function. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll try to execute the inline table value function. This is our function name, select star from. We have to pass the function name. Also we have to pass the input parameter. Suppose I want to get the employee ID 1 information. For that I have to pass 1 here. Click on execute. So we are able to extract the data of employee ID 1. Like this I want to get the data of 7. So here we can pass the employee ID as 7, so that we can extract the data of employee ID 7. Like this we can create inline table value function in SQL Server, and we can use like our SQL table. In today's session we are going to discuss about multi-statement table valued functions in SQL Server. This multi-statement table valued function returns a table variable as a result. As we discussed in previous session, inline table valued functions also will return output as a table. Even multi-statement table valued functions also, we will get result as a table. There is no much difference between inline table valued function and multi-statement table valued function. In this multi-statement table valued functions, we have to declare table variable explicitly. In inline table valued functions, we no need to declare table variable. So directly we can return the table. Whereas multi-statement table valued functions, we have to declare the table explicitly. That is the difference between inline and multi-statement. These multi-statement table valued functions are very useful because we can execute multiple queries within the function and aggregate results into the return table. This function is very useful. Also, we can execute multiple queries within the function. This is the example for multi-statement table valued functions. We are going to create one function here, and we have to provide function name where it will return table. So we are explicitly declaring the table name here, and here we are passing output column names. These columns we will get it as output. Along with the data type we have to pass it. Here we can pass multiple SQL statements. We have one table called employee master where it contains employee information. Also we have one more master called customer master where it contains customer information. By using these two tables we have to create one multi-statement table valued function. From that we have to extract name and contact type. If it is employee means we have to display contact type as employee. If it is customer means contact type will be customer. We are going to extract these names from the employee master and customer master. If it is employee master, then contact type will be employee. If it is from customer table, then contact type will be customer. So like this we are going to get the output. So name and contact type we will get. If the record is getting from employee master, then contact type will be employee. If the data is getting from the customer table, then contact type will be customer. So this is our output column names. Here name we are passing here. This is output displayed as name. This contact type where we are passing output column name, it will be displayed in the output. This is the output table we are going to get it. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll create multi-statement table valued function like this, and we'll try to extract the data from employee master and customer table like this. For this demo, I'm using Microsoft SQL Server 2012 and I'm going to use Windows authentication. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. Expand the database called demo. We are going to use demo database for this example. And expand the tables. We have two tables called employee master and customer master. First we'll check the records from these tables. This is one table where it contains employee information, and we have one more table called customer master where it contains customer information. From this we have to extract the name and contact type. Click on database, new query, create function. We have to provide the function name here. It is user defined function. Get employee and customer info. So we have to get the employee and customer information. Here it returns table. We have to declare the table name here, and it will return as table. Here we have to pass our output column names, that is we need name, and data type also we have to declare here, and length of the column name, and we have contact type where it will be string, and it will begin here, and here we have to call our select statements. We have to insert into, we have to pass our table name here which is already declared, and here we have to select the column names from employee master first. Select name, and contact type will be employee from employee master. So here we will get all the columns with the name and contact type. So we are going to insert into employee customer. These are all the columns we have to insert. So I'll copy this same query. Now we need customer information, that is customer. We have to get it from customer master table. Finally we have to return the table. Click on execute. It's executed successfully. We can check whether it's created or not. Go to programmability, under functions, table valued functions. This is our function name. So our function has been created here. Now we'll see how to execute a multi-statement table valued function in SQL Server. This is the syntax to execute function. Select star from. So we have to pass the function name here. This is the example. Select star from. We are going to pass our function name here. We will get the data from the tables. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll execute this function. So this is our function name. Select star from. Click on execute. So we are getting all the employee information. We are getting customer information. Like this we can use the multi-statement table valued functions in SQL Server. Now we'll see the main differences between inline table valued and multi-statement table valued functions. Inline table valued functions, a return class cannot contain the structure of the table. Here there will not be any structure, so directly we can call the return as table. Whereas in multi-statement table valued functions we have to specify the structure of the table. Next is performance wise, inline table valued functions are always better than multi-statement functions. Generally, inline functions doesn't have begin and end blocks, whereas multi-statement table functions contains begin and end block. These are all major differences between inline table valued and multi-statement table valued functions. In today's session, we are going to discuss about statements in SQL Server. SQL statements are nothing but identifiers, parameters, variables, names, data types, and SQL reserved words which are using in the SQL Server as called as statements. First we'll see what are all the types of statements available in SQL Server. The SQL statements are separated as some groups, that is called DDL, DQL, DML, DCL and TCL. DDL is nothing but data definition language, DQL is data query language, data manipulation language, data control language and transaction control language. Also these groups are called as sub-languages of SQL Server. SQL is structured query language. Also we will call all these groups as sub-languages of SQL Server. So under each category we have different types of statements. So under data definition language we have some statements like create, alter, drop, rename, truncate and comment. Under data query language we have only single statement, that is select statement. Under data manipulation language we have insert, update and delete. Under DCL data control language we have grant and revoke. Under transaction control language we have begin run, commit run and rollback. We have different set of statements under each category. We are going to discuss about each statement with the examples in SQL Server. In today's session we are going to discuss about data definition language under SQL statements. Under data definition language we have multiple statements like create, alter, drop, truncate and comment. We are going to discuss about each statement with the example. First we will see what is the data definition language. It consists of the SQL commands that can be used to define the database schema. So whenever we are creating any schema, we will use the data definition language. It simply deals with the description of the database schema and is used to create and modify the structure of the database objects in the database. So this will be used to create or modify the structure of the database objects in the SQL database. We have some important SQL statements like create, alter, drop, truncate and comment. We'll see one by one. First, create. It is used to create the database or its objects. Like we can create tables, index, functions, views, store procedures and triggers. Whenever we are creating any object, we will use the create statement. This is the syntax for create statement. Create. Here we are going to create one database. We have to provide the database here and database name we have to provide. If you are creating any table, we will pass the table keyword here and table name and whatever the columns you want, we can provide here. So this is the example for create statement. Create database. Here database name. We are going to create one test DB. For that I am using create statement and here this is the keyword of database and we are giving database name. While creating table, we will use the create statement like this. Create table. Here we have to provide the table name and we are going to provide column names with the data types. For demo purpose, I am using Microsoft SQL Server 2012 and I am going to use Windows authentication. If you want, you can use the SQL Server authentication by providing login ID and password. I am going to use Windows authentication. Click on connect. It has been connected to my database. First we will create one database. For that click on new query. Create is the statement. I want to create database. So here we have to provide the database name. This is my database name, testdb. Click on execute. You can check it in the Explorer. So our database has been created here. So like this you can use the create statement. We will create one more table here under testdb. Create is the statement table. We are going to create one table. Here we have to provide the table name. I am giving table name as test table and here I have to provide column names. I am giving as column name ID and integer. This is the data type. Click on execute. Your table is created. You can expand the database. Refresh it here under tables. our table has been created. Like this, by using create statement, we can create database and we can create table, store procedures, triggers, index. So based on our requirement, we will use the create statement. Next is alter statement. It is used to add, modify, drop or rename a column or rename a table. If you want to rename any object, if you want to alter any object, that time we will use the alter statement. This is the syntax for alter statement. Alter table, table name. Here we have to pause and we are going to add one new column for this existing table. Here we have to pause column name with the data type. This is the example. Alter table. This is the table name, test table. I'm going to add one address column with the data type of worker. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the alter statement example. We have the table called test table where it contains one column with the ID. For this table, I want to add one more column called address. For that, I will use alter statement. Here I have to pass the table keyword and we have to pass the table name. I'm going to add one column called address here, and here we have to provide the data type and size. I'm giving as 500 characters. Click on execute. So our column is added. Now check the select statement. So our address column has been added to the existing table. Like this we can use the alter statement. Next is drop statement. This is used to remove database, tables, indexes, triggers and constraints. It's opposite to create statement. In create we will use to create these objects, whereas drop will be used to remove the objects like database, table, indexes, triggers and constraints. This is the syntax for drop statement. Drop, we have to pass the table keyword here and we have to pass the table name. We are going to drop one table here. This is the example. Drop table, test table is our table name. We'll see the example for drop statement. Suppose we have table called test table. We will drop this one. Drop table. You have to pass the table name. That's it. Click on execute. It's executed successfully. If you come to tables, refresh here, our table has been dropped here. Next is truncate. It is used to remove all records from a table, including all spaces allocated for the records are removed. This truncate statement we will use to delete all the records from a table. Also, it will remove all the spaces allocated for these records. This is the syntax for the truncate statement. Truncate table. We are going to pass table name here. This is the example. Truncate table, we have to pass the table name. We'll see the example for truncate statement. First we'll insert some records into this table. I'm inserting some records. If you see the table now, we have two records here. Now we will use the truncate statement. Table, we have to pass the table name here. Execute the query. Executed successfully. Now you check the select statement whether any records available. So it's all are truncated from this query. Like this we can use the truncate statement. Next statement is comment. It is used to add comments to the data dictionary. Whenever you want to add any comments to your SQL queries, we will use the comment. We have different types of comments here, that is single line comments, multi-line comments and inline comment. We'll see one by one. Single line comments. Comments starting and ending in a single line are considered as single line comments. Single line comments we can't use more than a line. Line starting with hyphen, it is double hyphen is a comment and will not be executed. When line starting with double hyphen is a comment and will not be executed. Whenever we use double hyphen, it will not be executed. SQL Server will treat this as a single line comment and it will not be executed. This is the syntax for single line comment. Whenever you want to use the single line comment, you have to use the hyphen 2 times, that is double hyphen, and then you can start the single line comment. This is the example for single line comment. We'll see the example in SQL Server. Click on new query. I'm using one select statement to check the records from my table. This is my table where it contains ID and address. For this I want to add single line comment. So execute again. Still our query is able to execute because SQL will think that this is a single line comment. We should not consider to compile this line. Okay. Suppose if I am removing one hyphen here, execute now, it throws the error because it's not able to identify it is a comment. Always we have to use the double hyphen, then only it will treat it as comment. Like this we can use the single line comments. Multi-line comments. Comments starting in one line and ending in different lines are considered as multi-line comments. If you want to use more than a single line, then you have to use the multi-line comments. Line starting with forward slash star is considered as starting point of the comment and are terminated when star forward slash is encountered. So whenever we want to use the multi-line comments, it starts with the forward slash star and then closes with the star forward slash. This is the syntax for multi-line comments. So whenever you want to use the multi-line comment, you have to start with the forward slash star, then you have to put all the comments, then again you have to close with the star forward slash. So here you can pass your queries. This is the example. We are going to pass the multi-line comment here, then finally we are going to pass our select query. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for multi-line comments. So this is our query. Here we want to add the multi-line comment. For that I am using forward slash star and again I am closing with the here. Here we can pass multiple comments. Suppose I am creating like this and I want to pass some data here. So these are all comments I have added. Like this you can add multiple comments here. So we are able to see the data also here. Like this we can pass multiple comments to your select query. Execute now. It's executing fine. So whenever we use this forward slash star and we are closing with the star forward slash, SQL Server will not consider these block to execute. Okay, it will treat it as comment. Like this we can use the multi-line comments. Next is inline comments. Inline comments are an extension of multi-line comments. Comments can be stated in between the statements. So this is the syntax for inline comments. Select star from table. We are calling one query here where you can use inline comment like this. It's like almost similar to multi-line comments, whereas here you are using within the statement. This is the example for inline comments. Here we are going to pass inline comments. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for inline comments. So this is our select query. Here I want to pass one inline comment. For that I will use like this. So this is the inline comment. Try to execute this. It's executing fine and these blocks are not considered as it's a query. Okay, Like this, we can use inline comments in SQL Server. In today's session, we are going to discuss about DQL, that is data query language. Inside DQL, we have the statement called select statement. We are going to discuss about select statement with the examples. Data query language is used to fetch the data from the database. Whenever we want to extract the data from the database, that time we will use the data query language. Inside data query language, we have one statement called select statement. The select statement is used to select records from the table with or without a condition. Whenever we want to extract the data from any table, we will use the select statement. This is the syntax for select statement. Select star from table. Here we have to pass the table name. Here we are not passing any condition. Without condition also we can use the select statements. We will see one more syntax where we are using the condition. Same select statement, but here we are using some conditions. Okay. This is the example for select statement. Select star from employee master. It will extract all the records from the employee master table without any condition. So one more example for select statement where we are going to apply condition. Select star from employee master where employee ID is 2. If employee ID is 2, then only I need the data. That's why I am using this condition. We will switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for select statement. I am going to use SQL Server 2012 for this demo. I am using Windows authentication. Click on connect. It is connected to my database. Expand the databases. I have one database called demo. Under demo we have table called employee master. I want to extract the data from this employee master. Click on new query. Select star from employee master. I want to extract all the data without any condition. That time I will use select statement without any conditions like this. Click on execute. I am able to extract all the records from this employee master table without any condition. Now we will see one more example with the condition. Employee master wherever employee ID is 2, I want to extract this data. Select this query, click on execute. See, we are able to extract the data based on the condition. Like this, we can use select statement with or without any conditions. In this session, we are going to discuss about DML, data manipulation language. In data manipulation language, we have different commands like insert, update and delete. We are going to discuss about all these commands with the examples. First, we'll see what is meant by DML. DML is a data manipulation language. The SQL commands that deals with the data manipulation language belongs to DML. Whatever the commands we are using for data manipulation, it belongs to data manipulation language. So we have different commands like insert, update and delete. We will discuss about each command with the example. Insert. Insert statement is used to insert a set of values into a database table. If you want to insert any data into the database table, we will use the insert command. This is the syntax for insert. Insert into, we have to pass the table name. Along with the table name, we have to pass column names and we have to pass the values. This is the example, insert into. So I have one table called TBL demo. So I am going to insert two columns. One is ID and name. We are passing the values like this. If you are passing integer, you don't need to put the single quote. If you are passing other than integer, then you have to put in single quotes. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. So I'm going to use SQL Server 2012 for this example. I'm using Windows authentication. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. I'm going to use database called demo. We will create one sample table first. Right click on the tables, new table. Here I am creating some columns. ID it will be integer. And I am creating one more column called name. So we have to provide the data type here. Right click here, save table. I'm giving table name as TBL demo. Click on OK. So our table is saved. Refresh here. So table is created. So we don't have any rows here. Now we will insert into this table by using insert command. Now we will insert the records into table by using insert command. Insert into, we have to provide our table name here, TBL demo, and we have to pass our column names. ID is one column name and one more is name. Also we have to pass the values. I want to insert record as 1, then I need to insert name called test. Click on execute. So our record is inserted. So you can check the records here. So our record is inserted. Like this we will insert 2 more records. So we have inserted multiple records. So like this we can use the insert command. Next is update command. The update statement is used to update existing values in a table with or without a condition. If we want to update any existing data, so we will use the update statement. Also we can use condition. Without condition also we can use the update statement. This is the syntax for update. Here we have to pass the update, table name we have to pass, we have to set the column name and values we have to set. Here we can pass the condition. Also we can use the without condition also to update existing data table. This is the example for update. Update, we have to pass the table name here and we have to pass the column name along with the value. And here we are passing the condition. Also we can use without condition also like this. So it will update the entire table with this data. Here we are passing condition where it will update only where ID is 2. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for update statement. We are going to use same table for update also. We have 3 records in TBL demo. We will update first record with the condition. For that we have to use the update. We have to pass the table name and set. We have to pass the column name here, name. I'm going to set it as testing. Here we are going to use the where condition where ID is 1. This record I am going to update it as testing. So that's why I am passing ID as 1. We will update now. Click on execute. Now check the records from this table. So our first record has been updated. Now we will try to update the same table without this condition. For that I am removing this condition. So testing without condition. Just try to update this. Check the table values now. So all the records has been updated. So like this we can use the update statement with condition or without condition. Next we have one more statement called delete statement, where it is used to delete the existing records in the table. Here also we can use the condition or without condition also we can delete the records. So this is the syntax to delete the records from a table. Delete from, here we have to pass the table name. Here you can use the condition. Also you can use delete statement without condition also. If you are using condition, it will delete only that specific record. If you are using without condition, then it will delete all the records from the specific table. We should be very careful while using this statement because it will delete entire records in the table. Okay, we should be very careful while deleting without condition. Then this is the example for delete statement. Delete from, you have to use the table name here. Here we are passing the id so that it will delete only id 2 records. Okay, like this we can use the delete statement without condition where it will delete entire table records. That means it will delete all the records from the TBL demo. We'll see the demo in SQL Server. Here we have 3 records in TBL demo. First we'll try to delete the record with the condition delete from. You have to pass the table name here where id is 3. I want to delete the record where id is 3. Click on execute. One row deleted. Now we will try to use the delete without this condition. Execute this command. So 2 records are affected. Try to execute. There is no loss. Earlier we had 2 records. Now all the records has been deleted because we have not passed any condition here. Like this we can use the delete statement.
We are going to discuss about data control language. We have two options like grant and revoke. So we are going to discuss with the examples. First we'll see the data control language. Data control language we will use to define the control over the data in the database. So we have two different options like grant and revoke. If you want to assign any rights to the user, so we will use the grant, and if you want to revoke the rights, we will use the revoke. We'll see one by one. Grant is used to provide access or privileges on the database objects to the users. If you want to assign any privileges to the database for specific user, we will use the grant. This is the syntax for grant. Grant, here we have to provide the privilege name, and here we have to provide the object name, database object name, and here we have to pass the username or role name, or if it is public means you have to provide it here. So this is the example. If you want to provide any privileges to the specific user, you have to use this query grant select is the, we are going to provide the select privilege. This is the table name is employee, and we are providing the privilege to user one. This is the username. Okay, first we'll see what is meant by privilege name, the object name, users, public and role name detail, and then we'll go for a demo. Privilege name, privilege granted to the user. So what type of privilege you are going to provide to the user? So here you have to pass that value. Like if you want to provide only select, so you can provide the select as a privilege name. Some of the access rights are like all, execute and select. So these are the few examples for privilege names. So if you want to provide all the access, you can provide all. Only execute, you can provide the execute. If you want to only provide select access, you can provide as the select as privilege name. Then object name is the name of the database like table, view, stored procedure and sequence. You can provide the any specific. If you want to provide all, you can provide. Otherwise, if you want to provide any specific privileges, like if I want to provide privileges for only table, then I can provide the table name here so that user can access only that specific table. Okay, then username is the name of the user who is going to log in into your SQL Server, so to whom you want to provide the access rights. This is the username, here you have to pass. Then public is used to grant access rights to all users. If you want to provide access rights for all the users, then you have to use the public. Finally, roles are the set of privileges grouped together. You can group it all the roles together and you can provide the rights. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example for grant. I'm using Microsoft SQL Server 2012 and I'm going to use Windows authentication. If you want, you can use this SQL Server authentication by providing user ID and password. I'm selecting Windows Authentication. This is my server name. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. I have one database called demo. Here I have tables. So I want to provide rights to one of the user for this specific table. First I will create one user. For that, expand the security users. We have different users here. I want to create one user for testing purpose. Click on new user. Here you have to provide the username. I am creating as user1, and login name also I am providing user1, and default schema I want to give it like DBO. DBO is my default schema. Click on OK. My user has been created here. First we will disconnect with the SQL Server and we will log in with new user. So I am selecting SQL authentication and I am going to log in with the user1 and password. Expand the databases, expand the demo, expand the tables. There is no tables mapped to the specific user because we have not assigned any rights or privileges to the specific user, that is user1. So he is not able to access the any of the tables or procedures and all. So for that what we have to do, we have to provide the privileges. Again I am disconnecting. I am getting into the my login, Windows authentication. Click on connect. Here by using grant we have to provide the privileges. For that, expand the databases. This is my database. Here only I have the user called user1. For this user I want to provide the privileges. Click on new query. You can click on demo also, database, that's enough. Click on new query. Here we have to use grant. So I want to give the access for only select privileges. That's why I'm using select on which table or stored procedure. I want to give the access for one of the table called employee master. So I'm taking the table name here. For this table I want to give the access for only select. Here you have to provide the username. So this is my username, user1. For user1 I am giving privileges for select the data. Click on execute. So our command is executed successfully. Now we will disconnect the user and we will log in with the new user who is. Now we will connect with the user1. Select the authentication as SQL Server. Provide the password here. Click on connect. It's connected. Now expand the databases again. Demo database and tables. So now we can access the employee master table because we provided the select privilege. So we can access the table. I'll try to execute select query. Select star form. This is my table name. Execute now. So user1 is able to access the data with the select query. I want to delete the data from this table. Right click on the table, edit top 200 rows where it will display all the records. Select this record, right click on delete. Yes, I want to delete this row. It says the delete permission was denied on the object employee master because we have provided the only select privilege, not delete. So that's why it's not allowing to delete the records. Like this we can restrict different users with the different privileges. Now we will see the revoke. The revoke command removes user access rights or privileges to the database objects. So it's totally opposite to the grant. By using grant we assign the privileges. By using revoke we can remove the all the privileges which is assigned to the user. This is the syntax for that revoke, and privilege name we have to pass, and on which object we are going to revoke the privileges we have to pass the object name, and so you have to pass the username. Suppose if you want to revoke privileges from a specific user, then you have to pass the username, or if it is from all the users, then you have to pass it as public, or if you want to revoke any specific role, then you have to pass the role name here. This is the example revoke select on employee from user1. Here we are going to revoke the select privilege from the employee table from user1. We'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the example. So here we have logged in with the user1, and we are able to use the select query. Here we are able to access. Now what I will do, I will disconnect with the user1, and again I will connect with the my Windows authentication account. Click on connect. It's connected to my DB server. Now expand the databases. Click on demo. Click on new query. Now I want to revoke the privileges. For that I will use revoke. We have to pass the privilege name here. Select is the privilege name. On we have to pass the table name here, that is employee master table, and here we have to pass the username. This is the query to revoke the privileges from user1 on table 1. Okay, click on execute. It's executed successfully. Now we will disconnect this. We will log in with the user1 again. It's connected to database server. Expand the databases, and the demo database you have to expand, and check the tables. Again it's removed. Like this we can restrict the users privileges. In this session we are going to discuss about transaction control language in SQL Server. First we will see what is meant by transaction control language. This is one of the important topic in SQL Server. Especially we will use these transactions while doing insert, update and delete. We have different commands under transaction control language, that is begin tran, commit tran and rollback. We can use it as rollback tran also. So it's tran mean by transaction. We can use the full name or you can use the short name as tran also. First we will see one by one. So begin tran, it indicates the starting point of a transaction. Whenever we are using the begin tran, that is the starting point of the transaction. So before starting any transaction we have to use the begin tran. If you add begin transaction before the statement, it automatically makes the transaction explicit and holds a lock on the table until the transaction is either committed or rolled back. Whenever we use the begin transaction before any statement, automatically it holds a lock on the table until the transaction is either committed or rolled back. So after using the begin transaction, we have to commit the transaction or we have to roll back. Any one should be done. Then only we can access the table. We'll see the syntax of begin transaction. This is the transaction. We can use the full name also, like begin transaction, or short name we can use it as begin tran. So whenever we are using any statement or query, we have to use the begin tran. Then we can use our statement here. Here I am going to use an update statement. So we are going to update one table and we are going to update a column, and we have to pass the value here. This where condition is optional. If you want to use the where condition, you can use, or you can skip it. Especially while using update, we will use the where condition. That's why I'm updating here. Otherwise it will update entire table data. If you are not using where condition, we should be very careful. So this is our example, begin tran. Here we are going to update one table and we are setting the employee name as test and where employee ID is. This is very simple syntax. So we'll complete remaining two also, then we'll see the demo of these transaction controls. Next is commit transaction. It commits the changes to the database. Whenever we are using the begin tran, we have to close with the commit run, then only it will commit the changes to the database. Once we issued a commit transaction, it cannot be rolled back. Whenever we use the commit transaction, we cannot roll back the transaction data. So once it is committed, that's it. It will be committed to the database. We can't roll back. This is a syntax for commit transaction. Here we are using begin tran. So this is our SQL statement. Whenever we are completing our statement, we have to commit the transaction. Then only the changes will be committed to the database. This is the example. Here we are using the begin tran. Then we are updating one table called employee master. And finally we are using the commit tran to commit the data into the database. Final one is rollback. You can use it as rollback or you can use the rollback transaction also. It starts the rollback process and reverts any changes performed by the transaction. Whenever we use the rollback, it reverts all the changes performed by the transaction. It might take a long time depending upon the changes performed earlier. So whenever we are using rollback, sometimes it takes more time depending upon our changes performed earlier. Suppose we are updating some 1000 records at a time and we are trying to roll back the transaction. That time it may take some extra time. This is the syntax for rollback. Here we are starting the begin tran and we are giving the update statement. After update statement, I found some issues or errors. So I want to roll back the transactions. So that time we will use, instead of commit transaction, we will use the rollback or rollback transaction. This is the example for rollback. We are updating one table. I don't want to commit all the transactions, so I am using the rollback and I am reverting all the changes. See the process flow of these transaction controls. We will start with the begin transaction. Then we have to provide the statements or our commands or queries. Then we have to check for the errors. If there is any errors, we have to roll back the transaction. If there is no errors, then commit the transaction. This is entire flow of our transaction control language. So this is very important one. Now we'll switch to SQL Server and we'll see the demo. I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server 2012 and I'm going to use Windows authentication. If required, you can use the SQL Server authentication also by using login ID and password. I'm going to use Windows authentication only. Click on connect. It's connected to my database server. Expand the databases. I have one database called test database. Inside this, I created some tables. We will check the data of this TBL employees. Here I have one record called employee name, city, department and gender. Now I'll start to update this data. So whenever we are going to use the update, we have to start with the begin transaction. Then we have to pass our statement update. I have to pass the table name here. Then I want to update city. I want to update it as suppose height. And here we can pass our where condition also. Otherwise it will update all the records in the table. In our case we have only one record, so we can use without where condition also. Here we use the begin transaction. Now after giving begin transaction, we have to commit the transaction. First we'll see what will happen if we are not using commit or rollback. Click on execute. One row is affected. Now I'll open new query and I'll try to access those data which is updated. Click on execute. See, we are unable to read the data because whenever we use the begin transaction, it will holds the explicitly lock on the table. So until unless you commit the transaction or you have to roll back the transaction. You can't access the data which is uncommitted. So by default SQL Server we can access the data which is already committed. Still we can access the uncommitted data by using this command set transaction. Isolation 11 we have to change. So I want to see the uncommitted data also. Here we have to set. Now select this command, execute. Now try to run this select query. See, here we are able to access because this is not committed. That's why we have to execute this command, then only we can access the uncommitted data. Now we will commit the transaction because I want to update the record. So you no need to select entire thing, you can select the commit transaction, that's enough. Now you select the data. So now we are able to access the data. Suppose I am updating this to this transaction. Click on execute. So I have executed this data. I am changing employee city to Hyderabad. Now I don't want to commit. I'll use the rollback to revert the transaction. Click on execute. Now check the employee data. See, still it is hide only because we tried to update the data as Hyderabad, but finally we have not committed the transaction. We rolled back the transaction. That's why it is not updated. Like this, we can use the begin run, commit run, and rollback. All the transaction control language we can use. This is very important one. Now what we will do is in real time we will use it like this. We will use these things in stored procedures especially. First we will create one stored procedure and we will see the begin run, commit run, and rollback how to use in real time. Okay. For that I am going to create one stored procedure here. Click on database, new query. Here we will create one stored procedure. Create. I am going to create one stored procedure. Add employees. This is my stored procedure name. It will begin here and I want to provide few parameters here to insert the data. So here we have columns like name, city, department, and gender. I am taking as name. So then I want city, then department, and gender. So this I am providing value. Length of the value will be 6 digit. Here I want to begin try. If there is any error, I want to catch it and end try. And here we have to catch the error, catch and catch. Okay, if there is any error, we will get it here. Here we have to use the insert statement. Before that, we have to start with the begin transaction. Then here we have to commit the transaction. Here I am inserting records into table employees, and here we have to provide the column names. Here we have to provide the values of these columns, that is name, city, department, and finally gender. So now our statement is ready. Here we'll start with the begin transaction, and here we are going to insert the data. If the data is inserted successfully, then it will be committed, or else if there is any error, here we have to roll back. So we can use the rollback transaction like this also. Here for our understanding we will print statement. Suppose if it is committed successful, transaction committed. Suppose if there is any error, here we have to print this transaction rollback. Okay, so whenever there is error, it will print this message. Click on execute. Our stored procedure is created here. We will try to insert some records. Okay, here we have to provide the name, then we have to provide the city, then we have to provide department, finally we have to provide gender. Okay, click on execute. Transaction committed. Because there is no error, that's why this transaction is committed successfully. Now we will try to insert one more record here. Here what we are going to do is department length will be 10 digits. It will allow only 10 characters. We will try to add more than 10 characters. So same thing I am copying here. So I am trying to insert which department length is more than 10 characters. Click on execute. See, transaction is rolled back because it will allow only 10 characters where we are trying to insert more than that. So it will catch error here and it's roll back the transaction. If you want to see the error also, you can check it here. Print, you can get the exact error also like this. Here I am getting the error message. I'll print it here. Click on alter and execute. Our store procedure is executed. If you check the table, this record is not inserted because there was an error and it's rolled back. It was not committed the transaction. That's why it is printing the error. Now we will try to execute. Now it is showing the error details also. String or binary data would be truncate. So like this we can use the transaction control language in SQL Server. So in today's session we have discussed about transaction control language. In next session we are going to discuss about SQL classes in SQL Server. That's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to channel. Thanks for watching.